Hey Wargamers, today we're going to continue our discussion of The Greater Good, the latest Psychic Awakening book. In particular, we're going to look at the new Tau Empire Stratagems. Now, I don't have the actual book with me, it releases this weekend, but I do have some photos that our friends over at Preferred Enemies have sent over to us, and that is just fine as far as taking a look at these rules. So, that's what we're going to use. If you are new to the channel, go ahead and hit subscribe. That way you don't miss any of my upcoming content, including additional looks at The Greater Good. All right, so let's jump into it. So overall, I think there's actually a lot of really good stratagems here, and that's both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because we got more stratagems. We got more tools in our toolbox to really make a difference on the tabletop, and that's great. It's a curse because it means we have to be even more analytical in deciding which things we want to take and which things we want to prioritize. We will not have enough CP to use all of these stratagems as much as we would like to. That's always the case, but it's even more the case now that we have more high power stratagems. If these were a bunch of, just crappy stratagems, then, it doesn't matter. But these are generally some pretty good ones. And so that means that we have to really think about what we want to prioritize. There's a bunch of stratagems in here that open up new ways of play that, initially I got really excited about. It's like, oh, I'm going to bring this and that and this, all these things that I haven't brought before because I have these stratagems. But once I start to actually budget my CP, I realize I can't do that. There's not enough CP. There's not a way that I can build the army I want and have all the stratagems inside 2,000 points, right? So I have to balance those different things. And that's always been true, but it's even more true now that we have more tantalizing stratagems to use. That also applies to your actual army composition. We have to pick and choose which models we want to play with, which units we want to utilize. And that's, again, more the case now that we have these additional ways of playing thanks to these new stratagems. So I just want to get that out of the way and say there are a lot of really good ones here. I'm going to pick out my favorite and try to think about which ones I'm actually going to have the points and CP to use in an actual game. All right, so the first stratagem is Sworn Bodyguards. It says use this stratagem in the fight phase when a Sept Crisis Bodyguard unit from your army is chosen to fight with until the end of that phase when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a model in that unit. Whilst a friendly Sept character unit is within 3 inches of that model unit, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. At first, I was really excited about this stratagem. I was saying, okay, you know what? Now I'm just going to use bodyguards. I don't need to use normal crisis suits. I'm going to use bodyguards because they're going to get in close combat here, and they're just going to, lay on the pain. It's going to be a fist fight, and my crisis suits are going to go in there, and they're going to just wreck stuff up. And yeah, that's probably not actually going to happen if we run the math. So I think this is a really cool stratagem. I like the idea behind it. I think it could be a meaningful stratagem in terms of application, but it actually doesn't have the math behind it to support being part of your overall strategy. So, right, if we look at the actual damage output per crisis suit, we're still averaging about half of a wound to 2/3 of a wound if we're using this in conjunction with the veteran stratagem. So, really still less than 1 wound per crisis suit on a tactical marine. So really not a lot of output there. Proportionally, that's a big change, right? We are making a proportional change that is significant compared to not using this stratagem. But overall, would I rather have that 1 extra wound done, or would I rather use that CP for one of these other awesome stratagems? And I think at the end of the day, I'd rather spend the CP on one of these other stratagems that we're going to get to, or even one of the existing stratagems, right? Like, Uplink Marker Light. That is always useful, and so I'd rather use my CP on that than this. Additionally, bodyguards just cost more points, so I'd rather save the points there as well. Overall, I really like this stratagem, but not in a way that is actually going to affect my army composition going forward, just because I don't think the math actually supports it. Aerial Targeting. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase. Select 1 enemy unit until the end of that phase when resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon by a model from your army against that unit. Treat that unit as having 1 more marker light counter than it actually has for that attack. Now, this is a stratagem I think that you will use regularly. It's another way that you can build marker light support without having to rely on actual marker light shots. And that's really powerful. It means that you have a conversion ratio or an economy between command points and marker light hits. And so yes, you can bring Pathfinders, you can bring Firesight Marksmen, and they will provide marker lights for you. But if they die or you just need more, you can do that now. You're not SOL because your Pathfinders died or something. You have options here, which is really powerful. It means that late game, when you are in a pinch, you really need to just get that little extra boost, you can do it. And it means early game, when you still have most of your marker light support present, you can diversify your shots and spread it out a little bit more if you want to, if you need to. And that's really valuable. It also means that this stratagem, in conjunction with things like Uplink Marker Light or the Farsight Enclave's Tenet or the Sakia strat, give you multiple pathways to get to 5 marker lights with only a single actual marker light shot. So you can use these to really build up a diverse set of marker light caches across the board, even with a limited number of marker lights on the table. And I think that's super awesome. That's really powerful because, you do end up in cases where, you load up a target with marker lights and then it dies and you're like, oh, well, I only have one other marker light. What am I going to do with that? This gives you multiple pathways to deal with that scenario. So, very, very useful stratagem, and I'm eager to use this. Deadly Aim. This one is 2 command points. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a sniper drone unit from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of that phase, the armor penetration characteristic of longshot pulse rifle models in that unit are equipped with is improved by 1. Okay, that's kind of weird wording there, but their guns are, 1 AP better. In addition, until the end of the phase, when resolving an attack made with a longshot pulse rifle by a model in that unit against a unit that is within half range, the AP characteristic of that weapon is improved by a further 1 for that attack. So instead of going from AP dash, you're at AP -2, which is very nice. Of course, you could... This is really half of a huge buff to sniper drones through these stratagems. It solves one of the biggest problems that sniper drones have, which is not having AP. A bunch of strength 5 shots being thrown against a character that generally has a pretty good save, really not very effective. Really what we have been relying on with sniper drones are the mortal wounds, and having this option to actually do direct damage is very useful. -2 is pretty easy to achieve as well, considering they have such a long range. So having that 48-inch range means that you're able to get a -2 at 24 inches, which, after turn 1 is not going to be a rarity. So you're going to be able to make this happen, and you're going to be able to utilize this. The downside, though, of course, is that sniper drones aren't exactly cheap, and the stratagem is expensive. 2 CP, which... yes, if you're trying to take out a focal character, is worth it. But if you're not, then it's just not worth it. So when I am looking at this in terms of, do I want to change my army composition to bring sniper drones just so I can use this stratagem? I think the answer is no. I don't think that I will be able to use sniper drones well enough in large enough numbers and still maintain the integrity of the remainder of my list that justifies this stratagem being part of my overall strategy. If I'm bringing sniper drones anyways, yeah, I'm definitely going to use this stratagem, but I'm not going to bring sniper drones just because of this. It's very good, but I don't think it's quite good enough given all these other things that we've talked about. So yeah, it's unfortunately one of those things that I was really excited about, but something that I'm going to have to not give the rose to, and we'll have to say goodbye on the next episode of Invasive Wargaming Bachelor. Wisdom of the Many. Use this stratagem in your movement phase. Select 1 ethereal unit from your army. Until the end of that phase, that unit can invoke 1 additional elemental power using its Invocation of the Elements ability, so long as that elemental power has not already been invoked by that unit in that phase. Again, this is one that is useful but situational. You can buff a normal ethereal to give out 2 powers. You can buff Anva to give out 3 if you wanted. But really, it's something that is, useful in certain situations. I think it's something good to have in your back pocket. A lot of people are not going to be altering their army composition drastically by including an ethereal. So this is something that you're bringing ethereal anyway, probably, so you might as well use this if you need it, but don't plan on dishing out a CP for it every turn. It's not that good that you need to spend a CP every single turn just to have this. But in a pinch where you need to, maintain multiple things, then having this is welcome. So good, not great, but solid. Pulse Onslaught. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a breacher team unit from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of that phase, the range characteristic of close range and medium range profiles for pulse blaster models in that unit are equipped with are increased to 15 inches. Again, the weird wording, like they're trying to specify that the blasters have to be equipped by the models, whatever. But yeah, so you can shoot your awesome close range profile at 15 inches, which is good. Plain and simple. Good. It solves the biggest weakness of breachers and means that you can get a respectable output from even a 5-man squad. Having those 5-man squad put out 10 shots that are strength 6 minus 2 AP, nice. That's something that definitely can hurt. And kind of, I think makes all the changes that we had spoken about before about Vespid potentially being more viable. I think this undermines that quite a bit, that you can get this value out of breachers by just spending 1 CP, I think is very useful. It's unclear to me how this would work with hybridized weaponry, which is one of those custom SEP tenets we talked about in the last video, which basically adds 4 inches to your assault weapon range. And that's good. I don't know if that supersedes this or if this supersedes that in the way that, does it go up to 12 inches and then go up to 9 inches and then get boosted to 15, or does it go to 15 and then get boosted to 19? I'm not really sure. I could see arguments either way, and so I would like that to be addressed in the FAQ, but we'll see. This is something that is going to be good for everyone that brings breachers, but especially good for Farsight Enclaves due to the danger close stratagem. Vior Law because of the hoplite stratagem. Hoplite allows you to fire twice. Man, you're getting double your money with this stratagem and allows them to really lay on the hurt, especially if you bring a large unit of breachers. I really like that. Or Tau Sept with focus fire, also super useful. Additionally, you can use this in conjunction with breach and clear, and if the opponent is in cover, you're going to be doing even more damage. So lots of synergies with this stratagem, with other stratagems, other seps that can be very, very damaging. So this is something that I think is a bit of a game changer in terms of, do you bring breachers versus strike teams? And I think breachers are looking really good with this stratagem. This is one of those ones that I think is going to see a lot of play. Modulated weaponry. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a set model other than a Titanic model from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of that phase, do not roll to determine the type characteristic of heavy weapons that model is equipped with. They have their maximum values. Example, Heavy T6 is a 6-shot weapon. So we talked about this with the preview. We've already hashed this out. It's good for Riptides. It's good for Hammerheads. It's also very good for things like Tiger Sharks and Yuvaras, which I think it actually is fairly overpowered for those particular targets. Being able to have them shoot their maximum number of shots with the large number of variable shot weapons that they have is very good. So yeah, we don't need to rehash that all. It would be good on Arvanas if Arvanas were, worth much. Sorry, Arvanas, they're just not. They don't have a very well defined role in the army. There's everything that they can do, a standard Riptide can do better for the most part. So yeah, sorry. So it would be, something that you're going to be using if you're bringing those weapons. If you're bringing, an ion accelerator, if you're bringing a ion cannon, this is something that you are going to be using very regularly. If you're not, then you won't. So it's something that I think will see play if you're bringing those weapons, especially if you're using them in conjunction with some of the new prototype weapons. This is something that we'll see regular play. But if your army composition just doesn't happen to include those, then you obviously won't use this. So, something that I think is going to see play, but not necessarily ubiquitous play. Rain of Fire. Use the stratagem in your shooting phase when a Vespid unit from your army is chosen to shoot with until the end of that phase when resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon by a model in that unit. If that unit was set up on the battlefield using the Plunge from the Sky ability, that turn you can reroll the hit roll. Alright, so long way of saying if they deep strike, they can reroll their hits. Cool. That is a good buff, right? They needed a buff. Vespid need something to make them better, and this does make them better. But yeah, I don't know if Vespid are necessarily that much better than Breachers now if I can spend 1 CP to make Breachers do what Breachers do now. So yeah, I don't necessarily see this seeing a lot of play. Because Vespid just are a rarity in armies to begin with, and that Pulse Onslaught stratagem really undermines the usefulness of this one addition as well. I think whether this sees play or not will be largely meta dependent, but right now, no. Coordinated Engagement. Use the stratagem in your shooting phase. Select one XVA Crisis Battlesuit or Crisis Bodyguard unit from your army and select one enemy unit until the end of that phase. When resolving an attack made by a model in that unit against the enemy unit, treat that enemy unit as having 5 marker light counters. Hot dang, I like this one. This one is 2 command points, and that might seem like a lot, but considering that it gives you 5 marker light hits guaranteed on a particular unit, I think that's not a bad trade-off, really. We were talking about how you need to spend 2 CPs to get to 5 marker lights before using multiple different stratagems. This one does it with 1 stratagem. So, yeah, that's great. This means that, you can use those other stratagems to get your marker light hits up on different targets, and whatever you drop your crisis suits on, you can use this one and have it be a done deal. So, again, allows you to build up marker lights without having actual marker light target or marker light weapons on the table. That's in itself useful, but having multiple ways to do that means that you can spread that out even more, which is very useful. So this synergizes really well with the veteran stratagem and from the Farsight Enclave's benefits, being able to drop Farsight crisis suits down. And if they are veterans, this is going to be very, very useful. You're basically having a bunch of commanders drop on the table at ballistic skill 2, essentially, at that point. Very, very good. If you're looking to maximize the benefit of your stratagems, though, you might want to consider using this on a different unit of crisis suits that drop down, other than the one that has gotten the benefit of veterans already. You're getting a proportionally larger benefit by using veterans on one squad and this on a different squad. And that allows you to, get a overall higher output. In reality, I don't know if the multiple crisis suit unit composition will really be viable. And so I think what's more likely is that you have one unit of crisis suits, they're your veterans, and you use all these crisis focused stratagems on that one unit, which, yeah, you have diminishing returns, but overall high efficacy. So I think this is very good because of that. It also means that you can use your marker lights and marker light strats, as we discussed on other targets. And importantly, this avoids an issue with characters. You don't have to get that one initial marker light hit on a character if you're deep striking down in a way that allows you access to a character that other units don't have. Maybe you're deep striking in the back line and your marker light base does not have access to shooting at a character. This avoids that because it doesn't. You can use this on whoever. It doesn't have to be a otherwise targetable character or targetable unit. You can use this on a character and still be sitting pretty. So again, very useful. Ambushing predators. Use a stratagem in your opponent's charge phase. Select one recruit unit from your army until the end of that phase. That unit can perform a heroic intervention as if it were a character. In addition, if that unit performs a heroic intervention in that phase, it can do so if there are enemy units within 6 inches of them instead of 3 inches, and when doing so can move up to 6 inches instead of 3 inches. It's good that they included that second part, because if they didn't, then they wouldn't actually be able to, move the appropriate distance. So that's good. Having more effective screens is good. So this is certainly a buff to Crute. If you're bringing Crute, this is something that's going to be useful to you, but I don't think that this is something that justifies bringing Crute on its own. Seasoned Sniper. Use a stratagem in your shooting phase. Select one Firesight Marksman model from your army. Until the end of that phase, ranged weapons that model is equipped with can target a character unit even if it is not the closest enemy unit. So for 1 CP, being able to get a Marker Light off on a character is not bad. You can use this in conjunction with Uplink Marker Light and, do pretty darn well. So yeah, that's good. That allows you to, again, if you were deep striking in a place where you wouldn't otherwise be able to get Marker Light support, you can do that now. Otherwise, there are lots of times when your Marker Lights are just slightly malpositioned to get a shot off on a character where some other units of your army are going to be able to hammer down on them. And so this solves that problem. I think this is one that is probably going to see pretty common use. It's just, it has some good utility for 1 CP. I think it's worth it. Hidden Hunters. Use this stratagem at the start of your opponent's shooting phase. Select one recruit unit from your army until the end of that phase. When resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon against that unit whilst it is receiving the benefit of cover, subtract 1 from the hit roll and add 1 to the saving throw. So you're basically double dipping on cover, and then you are also hard to hit, which is good. It makes Crute more tanky. But again, if we're thinking about bringing Crute because of these stratagems, it just seems like there are better uses for these stratagems, right? So at this point, we're going to probably be spending 1 CP every turn to keep this unit of Crute on the board. They're definitely more durable than they would be otherwise, but I'm not really interested in spending 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 CP in order to make Crute work each turn. It's just not worth it at that point. I think some of these Crute stratagems really should just be rules that they get, or even if they were like a sept tenet. If you could bring a detachment of mostly Crute, then having a sept tenet that does that actually apply to them, because of course they don't actually benefit from sept tenets. But if you worked it in that way, that would be cool. Having to spend multiple CP in order to make Crute work just doesn't make sense to me. In that same vein, we have Pack Alpha. Use this stratagem before the battle. Select one Crute Shaper model from your army until the end of the battle. When making an advance roll or charge roll for a friendly Crute unit within 6 inches of that model, roll 1 additional d6 and discard 1 of the dice. So you can get a little bit better charge rolling on this for 1 CP, or advance rolling, right? So that's good. It makes your Crute more mobile, and because the Shaper is Crute himself, this can work for him. But yeah, that's just, again, I don't want to spend the CP to make that happen. Raging Beasts. Use this stratagem when a Crutox rider unit from your army is chosen to fight with in the fight phase. Until the end of that phase, models in that unit have a tax characteristic of 4. In addition, until the end of that phase, the armor penetration characteristic of Crutox Fist models in that unit are equipped with is improved by 2. Nice. I like the idea of Crutox just going crazy on something. It's just fun. But, see previous comments about spending CP. I don't want to do it for this. I really, this feels really like it should be a, once per game ability for Crutox to just Hulk out. That would be cool. I could see that being something maybe in the next edition, hopefully. The fact that they include it as a stratagem here, maybe that's less likely, but Point-blank volley. Use this stratagem at the start of your shooting phase. Select one sept unit from your army. Until the end of that phase, pulse blasters, pulse carbines, and pulse rifle models in that unit are equipped with have the type characteristic of Pistol 2. In addition, until the end of that phase, models in that unit cannot be affected by the volley fire ability. So, nice. That is good, right? That means that you, if your breachers get caught up in close combat, you can shoot your opponent at point blank range. Hence point blank volley, which is pretty darn good. The fact that they're not benefiting from volley fire anymore is fine, because you're doing way more damage shooting in close combat than you would be trying to punch in close combat. It is, useful for breachers in particular, although other Pathfinders, strike teams also benefit from this. But really, I just think of all the possibilities with breachers using this stratagem, even in conjunction with other stratagems as well. So something that I think will definitely get play if your breachers end up in close combat. Probably not if you only have a couple breachers left, but if you bring that big juicy 10-man unit of breachers and they get charged and somehow just a couple of them die, I'm going to spend the CP on this to lay down some pain in that phase. If there's only a couple guys left, no, I'm probably just going to run away. I think this is something that's going to be useful if you get trapped in combat. I don't think you want to stay in combat just to use this stratagem, though. Right? If you can back out of combat and have the rest of your army shoot at that target, you should do that. But if you can't, then give them what they asked for. Use those breachers. Finally, we have Promising Pupil. Use this stratagem before the battle. After nominating your warlord, select one separate character model from your army that does not have a warlord trait and determine one warlord trait for it. It is regarded as your warlord for the purposes of that warlord trait. Each warlord trait in your army must be unique. So, this is certainly tempting, although warlord traits really haven't been a make or break component of Tau lists in the past, at least in my perspective. So, having additional ones isn't critical, but it can be useful. It means that you can take 3 unity devastation as well as more utilitarian traits like aggressive tactician from the new Farside Enclave set that allow you to have both an offensive and more movement-based or even defensive capability in your army, which is useful. Or if you're taking named characters, you can let them be your warlord, and they can still take their warlord trait, and you can still take something that you actually want, or vice versa. You can make it work that way too. So really having this opens up some additional doors that can make units function a little bit better. I don't know if it's necessary. Well, I don't know if it's necessary. So useful, tempting. We'll see how it goes. I'll play around with it. I think there are certainly some lists that will benefit more than others from this, but yeah. All right. So those are the new stratagems. Like I said, I think there's a handful here that are really good. Point blank volley, seasoned sniper, coordinated engagement, modulated weaponry, pulse onslaught, aerial targeting. I think those guys are going to get used a lot. They just really seem to be worth the CP. The other ones are useful generally, but not worth changing your army composition for or spending the CP on them compared to some of these other alternatives. CP are going to be tight. You really got to budget them. You got to plan out kind of what things you're going to prioritize and not spend them willy-nilly. So thinking about these more powerful stratagems, I think I'm probably going to keep my cards a little close to my chest when I'm playing with these things. So very exciting. I'm excited to see these used on the tabletop. And of course, I'm interested on your guys' opinions as well. So please let me know what you think of these stratagems. What did I get right? Where did I, miss the point? Of course, let me know. And of course, let me know how these stratagems are working for you in your games. I want to hear about it as always. So thanks for watching. And as always, happy wargaming.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over on Patreon. These are the people that really help drive the channel and make things happen. So special thanks to Shifty, Dallas Ellis, Jim Bob, Scott Heater, Nick Steele, Tao Oswald, Jackson, Stephen Cohen, Eric Jackson, Michael Byrne, Zealous Brimstone, Jared Egler, and Chris Kessler.